Very good evening, students. Hello, good evening, good evening.
Hey, hi guys. Hello there. Hi, all of you all. I hope I'm audible. Great. So we meet once again. Today we have, as per the plan, we have to complete our chapter. That is the organisms and population, right? Little bit is still left. So let us complete the remaining part of the organisms and population. Last time, how much have we completed? What part have we completed? Have we done the commensalism? Have we explained the commensalism to you all? Commensalism, amensalism is left, right? We have to explain with the amensalism. I think parasitism is left. Parasitism and certain things about predation is also left. Okay, so we'll just cover up this remaining part and lots of MCQ practice, right? We have to do.
Yes, so very good evening. So see, this predation part is what we were doing the last time, right? So predation is the predator and prey links, right? So predator depends upon the prey as well as the prey depends upon the predator. Technically, both depend on each other. The predator and prey links. The predator depends upon the prey, and the prey also depends on predators. How is that? By keeping their population in control. The lion depends on deer definitely, but the deer also depends on lion because some of the deer when they are killed, the population of deer is in control, so that helps in the population stability. So it prevents the further extinction of the deer, because otherwise the deer population would have increased tremendously, causing the resources to become less, which would have caused the competition among themselves, and that would have led to the extinction in the future, right? So these are the few examples. Now I was explaining you that the predator and the prey. So there are certain advantages even the prey has got. Like even the prey, they have been given certain advantages by nature. So what are the certain advantages that the prey they have got from nature is that some of them can camouflage. right? So camouflage is a property by which, they are protected. Like frogs, they show the property of the cryptic camouflage. So for concealment, for faster, escape from the predators. So cryptic coloration or the camouflage is a very important property that they have got. That is shown by some insects as well as some of the frogs. Yeah, this monarch butterfly. Now, this monarch butterfly is a very beautiful looking butterfly, but it is never ever, no bird ever tries to prey upon this monarch butterfly. What is the reason why the birds, don't want to prey upon this monarch butterfly? Is that because whenever they have tasted the butterfly, whenever they have eaten the butterfly, they have got a very bad taste to the mouth. So they've got a pretty bad taste to the mouth. And this bad taste to the mouth, how the butterfly has acquired this taste? The butterfly has acquired this taste during its caterpillar stage. You all know that before they become the moths or before they become the butterflies, they are in the stage of larva and the caterpillars. So when this moth was a caterpillar at a time, right, it had fed upon certain weeds, certain poisonous grasses, and from those poisonous grasses, it has actually acquired that bad taste to the mouth. So that is a natural advantage, right? So these birds, never feed upon them, so they've got a natural advantage against the predators. So that is one. And then you can never see, like, there are some even the plants, they have developed some some characters, structural characters or adaptations, because of which the herbivores don't attack them. For example, the thorns which are present in acacia and the cactus, they are like the morphological defense. There are some plants which have made some chemicals that makes the herbivores sick. So when the herbivores eat those plants, those chemicals make the herbivores sick by causing their disruption of their digestion or reproduction, or even some are poisonous. Some herbivores are straight away killed. One such example is of the calotropis. Calotropis is like a weed, it's like a grass growing in the abandoned fields. What it can produce is it can produce high poisonous cardiac glycosides. And we will never ever see any cattle or any goat browsing on this plant. Why we would not be seeing any cattle or any goat browsing on this particular plant is because of the yes, perfect. The reason is because of the cardiac glycosides. How did the cattle come to know? Because their ancestors must have fed, no, and they must have suffered, they must have died. So that is how they have come to know that whenever you see this beautiful calotropis, we should avoid it, right? So similarly, there are a variety of, there is a wide variety of the chemical substances that we extract from the plants. Basically, the plants have produced them as secondary metabolites. Like all these substances which we humans use it for our benefit, like nicotine. Nicotine we're using for what? For like tobacco, for smoking and all that. Nicotine is used for a variety of other purposes. Caffeine obviously used in tea and coffee and cold drinks. So caffeine is a stimulant, right? Quinine, which is the product from China tree, cinchona tree. It is used for malaria. Strychnine also used for medical uses. Opium, we all know about opium. Opium plant, we get certain drugs like, which do we get from opium? We get heroin, we get morphine, and we get codeine. Out of that, the heroin is highly dangerous and it is banned. But morphine is used as a very strong painkiller, and the other one, which is the codeine. Codeine is non-addictive, so it is used in cough syrups. So all these products that we are using in our day-to-day life, but they are basically made by plants as the secondary metabolites, right? To prevent against or to protect themselves against the grazing animals and browsing animals, right?
Yes, so guys, what do you mean by the word secondary metabolite? Anyone can give me the meaning of the word secondary metabolite? No one? A primary metabolite is something that we need, something that is a must. Primary metabolites, they are those metabolites which are needed for the survival. So primary metabolites, they are must, they are very important, they're needed for the survival of that particular individual. But these secondary metabolites, secondary metabolites are like the add-ons. Yeah, Shreyansh. Yes, yes. So they are like the add-ons. They are not exactly needed. They are not necessary for the survival, but they are produced, right? They are not necessary for the survival of that particular organism, like antibiotics. Antibiotics are also, yes, Shreyash, you have raised your hand. You want to speak something? Yeah, very good, Samiksha. They're not essential for their growth. Even antibiotics are the secondary metabolites. Antibiotics that are produced by certain microorganisms, like, you know, the chemicals, the antibiotics, they're produced by the microbes. But that antibiotic is of no use to that particular microbe. We utilize them to kill the germs, but the chemicals or the antibiotics, they are also examples of the secondary metabolites. Apart from that, there are so many other secondary metabolites like nicotine is there, menthol is there. Have you heard about menthol, which is obtained from Mentha piperita? Menthol is also a secondary metabolite. Any other secondary metabolites? Very important for NEET. I'll give you some MCQs. Datura. Yes, Datura, say you get anthocyanin. Then there is a very important anti-cancer drug called as vincristine and vinblastine. That is also secondary metabolite. Have you heard about this? Vincristine and vinblastine. It's obtained from plant called Catharanthus roseus. So from the plant Catharanthus roseus, we can obtain vincristine and vinblastine. So vincristine as well as vinblastine, we obtained from what? We obtained from Catharanthus. All right, guys, have you finished with amenzalism? Just reply first. Has amenzalism been completed? Okay.
So what is the amenzalism then? Amenzalism is a type of interaction where one species is at loss, but the other one is not benefited technically. One species is definitely at loss, but the other one is not benefited. So what could be the examples of the amenzalism? I was telling you that day. Neutralism we have done, right? Symbiosis we've completed, right? Symbiosis, commensalism, protocooperation, right? Amenzalism is like an interaction when one is neutral, the other one is at loss. Like some mistake, like the elephants, trampling upon the insects. So the insects die, but the elephant is neither benefited or at loss because of the insect's death, right? Or I give you the example of the black walnut tree. The black walnut tree, releases some chemicals from its body, which results into the, inhibition of the growth of the surrounding trees. Interestingly, the chemical, that they contain, what is the chemical called as the chemical that the black walnut tree has, that is called as the jubilone. It's called as what? The jubilone. So jubilone is that chemical, that is released by the black walnut tree, because of which it inhibited the growth of the surrounding trees. Correct. Yeah, I guess, guys, parasites is what we have to continue with. Like there are a lot of type of parasites. So what we have discussed about the parasites till now is that the parasites, they are sometimes, host specific. Like there are some parasites which will only, depend upon a particular type of host. So there are some host specific parasites also. So they have, even the host and parasites have co-evolved. So there is co-evolution between the parasite and its particular host. Correct. And the properties I told you that the parasites do not require are, there is loss of the unnecessary sense organs. Yeah, but what they require is adhesive organs of the suckers, and what they require is they do not require any basic developed digestive system, because they are already drinking the digested blood, right? So what they don't require is the digestive system and the unnecessary sensory organs, but what they do require is the hooks and suckers and a very high, reproductive capacity. A high reproductive capacity is what they require. Then let's go ahead. Yeah, so the special adaptations, the life cycle of the parasites, like see, for example, even the life cycle of parasites are often complex, involving the intermediate host. Like, Plasmodium vivax. What is Plasmodium? It's a malarial parasite, right? What is Plasmodium? Plasmodium is the malarial parasite. Now, this Plasmodium, which is the malarial parasite, it has human as the host, as well as the female Anopheles mosquito. So the female Anopheles mosquito is the intermediate host. Even that too, there are some situations like them. And as I told you, the parasite harm the host. Most of them do not directly kill. They will reduce the survival of the host, they will reduce the growth of the host, they will reduce the reproduction of the host, and rarely may lead to the death of the host, but indirectly. In an indirect way, what they will do is that they will render the host more vulnerable to the predation, right? Or making the host, physically weak. Now let's go into the types of the parasites. Okay, let's understand which are the different types of these parasites. So the parasites are like ectoparasites and the endoparasites. So I'm going to explain you a lot of examples of the parasites now.
So let's understand which are the different types of the parasites. Like the ectoparasites is the one which lives outside the body of the host. So there are few parasites which are the ectoparasites. Where are they living? They're living outside the body of the host. Like, could you give me some examples of the ectoparasites? Any examples for the ectoparasites which are living outside the body of the host? So many are there. Oh, come on. You could talk about the mosquito. You could talk about the so many, the ticks, the lice, the bed bugs, the leech, hirudo, right? That is a leech and so on. So many are the ectoparasites. So they are living outside the host. And what do we mean by the word endoparasites? They are the ones which live always inside the host. Like we have Wuchereria, Bancrofti, Ankylostoma, hookworm, beefworm, pokeworm, tapeworm, liver fluke, and a planaria, all of them, they are the endoparasites. Planaria sometimes, are free living also, but all these, these Ascaris and all, they are all the endoparasites. They suck the blood from inside. They mainly affect which system? The digestive tract, the gut. Yes, correct. And then what we have to understand, are there any other types of parasites? You must have all heard about this story of the brood parasitism in the movie Three Idiots. Three Idiots में जो start होता है ना movie, the crow's eggs and the cuckoos, the quail. What the cuckoo does is that she's very smart. She doesn't want to babysit her own children. She doesn't care. So she goes, and the crow's eggs and cuckoo's eggs, they are almost similar. So what the Indian quail does is that she goes to the crow's nest, she drops off the, crow's nest down, and she puts her eggs, in place of the crow's eggs, and then she flies back. She's free. And when the crow comes back, he doesn't realize, he feels that these are his own eggs. So the crow babysits them, incubates them, feeds them, take care of them. And, so that is like a parasite, right? It's like a very unfair thing to do with the crow. And the reason why, they do is because the quail's eggs, the cuckoo's eggs, they hatch earlier than the crow's eggs. They hatch earlier. That's why the crow gets fooled. So that is called as what? That is called as the brood parasitism. So that's which type of parasitism? That is the brood parasitism. Any other parasitism you're going to tell me? There are many others, guys. There are so many other types of parasites. See, we discussed how many till now? We've discussed the ectoparasite, the endoparasite, and the brood parasite. There are a few more to go. I'll explain you this. Yeah, so one of them is called as the social parasites. What do these social parasites do? They take the advantage of the social encounters. That is in the animals that live in a colonies, like honeybees, the termites. They take the social encounters. Like, queen bee? What the queen bee does is that it prevents. So what the queen bee does is that it prevents the other worker bees, from becoming a queen. The queen bee prevents the other worker bees from becoming a queen by secreting something called as an anti-queen substance. Anti-queen substance is made by the queen bee, which prevents the other worker bees from becoming the queen. Yeah, so that is an example of what? That's an example of the social parasite. Then there are still more to go. There is another example called as the kleptoparasites. What do the kleptoparasites do? They have like the stealing habits. Like snakes, they steal the eggs of the birds, right? So that is called as a kleptoparasite. Klepto is like a stealing habit. So it is called as a kleptoparasite. Okay, clear? Then we have another parasite which is known as the hyperparasite. Another example that we know of is called as what? It's known as the hyperparasite. So what do you mean by this, hyperparasite? It's a very rare type of a parasite in which, there is like a trio. Yeah. There's a trio involved. How a trio is involved here is that in the hyperparasites, one parasite lives as a parasite inside another parasite, which in turn lives inside the host. So it's like a trio. One parasite, it lives as a parasite inside another organism, even that is a parasite inside the host. So that is called as hyperparasitism. What is it called as? It's known as the hyperparasites or the parasitism. So particular example for that, this I'm going to give you that there's a type of protozoa. This protozoa lives inside a flea called as a rat flea. And this rat flea lives as a parasite inside the digestive system of the dog. So here there is like a trio. This protozoa is a parasite, right? This protozoa is a parasite. It is living inside a rat flea. Now the rat flea is also a parasite in the digestive system of the dog. So who's the parasite number one? The parasite number one is the protozoa. Who is the parasite number two? The parasite number two is the rat flea. And who's the host? The host is the dog. So if you go in the reverse way, in the digestive system of dog, the rat flea lives. The rat flea lives in the digestive system of the dog, right? And inside that rat flea, a protozoa lives as a parasite. So it's like, an example of what? It is an example of the hyperparasite. Yeah, okay. Did you all get it? What is the hyperparasites? So hyperparasites are also one of the very important examples. Hyperparasites are what? One parasite lives inside another parasite, and that parasite in turn lives inside the host. So it is an example of the hyperparasite. So rat flea lives inside the protozoa. Like what is a protozoa? Kingdom Protista. Animal like protist is a protozoa. So a kind of protozoa lives inside the rat flea, which lives inside the digestive system of the dog. That's a hyperparasite. So we discussed ectoparasites, endoparasites, hyperparasites, social parasites, kleptoparasites. So many we have discussed. Now the very interesting type of parasitism, yeah, called as the adelphoparasites. This is something crazy, something very, very odd. Now the adelphoparasites, interestingly, was given in a book. Anyone knows where and where it was given? The adelphoparasite was given. I'll give you the name of that organism also. Adelphoparasitism was given in Bonellia viridis. Anyone remembers what is Bonellia viridis? It is a green spoonworm. The Bonellia viridis is the green spoonworm. So it is showing the adelphoparasitism. So what is adelphoparasitism? Like the parasite and host. Generally between the parasite and host, which is the higher, the host belongs to a higher category. It's a higher group of animal. And the parasite is generally the arthropods. Parasites generally they are the arthropods. But here it's a very unique type of it's a very unique type in which the parasite and the host, they belong to the same genus. Just imagine they're belonging to the same genus or to the same, families and all. Like, see, normally what happens? Normally, like mosquito and human. Mosquito is an arthropoda, insecta. Humans are higher orders, Ascaris and human, right? Anywhere the host is a higher organism, any parasites are the low ones. Here, the parasite and the host belong to the same species or the same family, or they belong to the same genus. So that is the adelphoparasitism. It is called as what? The adelphoparasitism.
Yeah, so let's see who will explain here. See, it was there. This is an example. This is the particular example for the Adelphoparasitism. So this is a green spoonworm. Vanalia viridis is a green spoonworm. Now, how do they show the Adelphoparasitism? Is because what happens is that they this when they mate, they lay the eggs. After mating, they lay the eggs. Now, what happens is that here, some of the eggs near the proboscis. This is the proboscis. So some of the eggs which are laid near the proboscis, they again enter the female's body, right? The eggs, what happens is that the larvae, they enter the female proboscis and they enter through the mouth and they go to the female's uterus. And here in the uterus, the male, the larvae develop into the male, and the male lives as a parasite. See, this line is very important. The larva, which lands on the proboscis of the female, enters and migrates to a uterus and becomes a male. That is okay. But now this male larva becomes a parasite and starts fertilizing her own eggs. So basically, the male larva starts to fertilize the own eggs of her own mother. Imagine. So the female will release the eggs. Some of these eggs again enter her proboscis and go to the uterus, and they get differentiated into males. And the same species, they remain as a parasite and fertilize his own mother's eggs while living inside the uterus as a parasite. This is an Adelphoparasitism. Here, the parasite and the host belong to the same species, right? The parasite is a larvae of Bonilla viridis, and the host is an adult female Bonilla viridis. Right? Did you get it? So both are like equals. Yes, yes, pretty weird. So present. All right, we go into the NCRT. Yeah, so predation is basically the same thing. Like you see here that they have given some examples, like when some exotic species are introduced they become invasive. Like what they have given example is like when we introduce the exotic species in the local area, the local species get affected. And the example that they have given is the prickly pear cactus introduced into Australia in the 1920s caused havoc by spreading into millions of hectares of the rangeland. And finally, the cactus was brought under control because of a cactus feeding moth. A cactus feeding moth was introduced, right? So this is called as like a biological controller. It is like a biocontrol, right? So biocontrol means what? Like if you want to, like nowadays we this was there in the guys chapter microbes in human welfare. In microbes and human welfare, you had a subtopic called microbes as the biocontrol agents, right? So nowadays we are using predators as an agents of biocontrol. Why to use chemical pesticides? If you want to kill the pests and all, if you use chemical pesticides, insecticides, they cause air pollution, water pollution. They kill the good bacteria, the non-target organisms. So and also they are not sustainable. They are even costly. They have a lot of side effects. So rather than that, we are employing the principle that an enemy's enemy is a friend, and enemy's enemy is a friend. So the same way, here we wanted to get rid of the prickly pear cactus. We wanted to get rid of what? We wanted to get rid of the prickly pear cactus. So who's the enemy of prickly pear cactus? Is a typical variety of a moth, a cactus feeding moth. So that became our friend. That became humans' best friend. So this moth was employed, and in a span of few months, these moths, cactus eating moths, they ate up all these prickly pear cactuses. Right? So this is like a biocontrol, a biological control. Like similar to that, one more example I'll give you. Similar to that, one more example I'll give you that in the
Yes, guys. So what I was saying was another example of biocontrol I would wish to give you all, that in California, like beautiful oranges, California oranges, like Nagpur oranges, California oranges are awesome, world famous. So a few years back, the California oranges, they were attacked by an insect called scale insect. The California, all the oranges, beautiful oranges of California, they were attacked by scale insect. So we wanted to do biocontrol. What is to do? How to do biocontrol? By introducing a predator. So we can introduce a predator who will kill the scale insects. So who was a predator for the who was a predator for killing of these scale insects? There was an Australian ladybug bugs. So these Australian ladybugs, they are the predators of the scale insects. So they were introduced and they ate up all the scale insects. Similarly, malaria, dengue, and chikungunya, all these mosquito-borne diseases like yellow fever, chikungunya, malaria, dengue, uh, so all of them, if you want to keep in control, what we can do is we can introduce a fish called as what? Guppy fish or Gambusia. Gambusia and guppy, they are the natural predators of the mosquito larvae. So they will prey upon the mosquito larvae, keeping all these mosquito-borne diseases under control. So that is one more example of the biocontrol. Okay, got it? Did you understand, everyone? Samjha?
Yeah, so the same way, this predators also, help in maintaining the species diversity by reducing, I told competition among the prey. So they keep the prey population in control. So in the rocky, intertidal communities of the American Pacific coast, the starfish called pisaster is an important predator. So pisaster is a very important predator in the Pacific coast of America in the intertidal rocky communities. So in a field experiment, what they did was when all the starfish were removed from the intertidal area, more than 10 species of invertebrates became extinct within a year. Understood? So the pisaster, the pisaster is what starfish. Starfish generally feed upon the arthropods and the molluscans. Starfish are carnivores, they feed upon the molluscans and the arthropods. So what they did in order to prove this point, they removed all these pisasters, they removed all these starfish from the intertidal zone, and they saw that more than 10 species of the invertebrates that got extinct within a year. Why they got extinct? Because there was no predator, so the populations increased, and when the population increased, there was competition between these 10 species, leading to extinction of each one of them. But if the predator is too powerful, even that is not good, because if the predator is too powerful, it will kill so many prey that the prey can get extinct. So prey species also have evolved. I told the prey has evolved certain features. For which I told the monarch butterfly. I give you the example. See how the plants have protected themselves from the herbivores, that nearly 25% of the insects are known to be phytophagous. What is phytophagous? They are known to feed upon the plant parts. Just imagine 25% of all insects. Insects are around 9 lakh species. So 25% of that 9 lakh species means around 2 lakh species. So around 2 lakh species of insects are phytophagous. Phyto means plants. So they feed upon the plants. Because see, problem why it is severe for plants, because plants, unlike animals, they cannot run away. They can't show like that reflex actions. So plants have shown certain modifications, like I told you, cactus, they have got the thorns, chemicals, like I gave you the example of Calotropis, strychnine, quinine, all of them. I've given you these examples. Competition we've done. Now let's talk about the parasites. See, one more example is that some parasites, involve two or more intermediate hosts or the vectors. Like I told you, like in the case of malarial parasite, the vectors, intermediate vectors are the mosquito himself as well as the human. So in this example, the human liver fluke, the liver fluke is a parasite, right? It's a parasite depending upon two intermediate hosts. Liver fluke is a platyhelminthes. It depends upon the two intermediate hosts. One is a snail and one is a fish to complete its life cycle. So it depends upon two, hosts. One is a snail and the other one is a fish to complete its life cycle. The malarial parasite also needs a vector to spread to the other host. So see, parasites can be ectoparasites. Like I told you, ectoparasites example is lice on humans, ticks on dogs. Even marine fish are infested with the copepods. Copepods are the ectoparasites. Marine fish are infested with the copepods externally. Cuscuta is a parasitic plant. We have discussed about that. Amar whale, dodder. During the evolution, it has lost chlorophyll. It has lost the power of autotrophicness. So it feeds upon the others, like with the help of the Hostoria, it sucks the nutrition from the xylem and the phloem. And the endoparasites, obviously, they are those that live inside the host at different sites, like, they are living in different places. Brood parasitism, we've given the example of the cuckoo. In certain commensalism examples, see, I told you about cattle egrets and cattle and orchids growing epiphyte. Another example, yes, sea anemone, we have told you. Mutualism is what, like, when both are benefited because of each other. So another example of co-evolution is that there is a certain variety of wasp, and a certain variety of wasp, species of wasp, is pollinating the fig species. So there's like a partnership between this wasp and a certain fig species, right? So both are getting benefit due to each other. What is the fig? What is the advantage of the fig species? Because because the wasp is coming, there is pollination. There is dispersal of the fig seeds, and there is pollination, right? That is the advantage for the fig. And what is the advantage for the wasp? The female, wasp uses the fruit not only as the oviposition. It lays the eggs in this fig fruit. Also uses the developing seeds for nourishing her own larvae. Right, so the female wasp, uses this fig for nourishment and for oviposition. What is oviposition? To lay the eggs. You could see this insect. That's a fig insect. It is pollinating a wasp. At the same time, the eggs are laid. The eggs are laid by the wasp inside the fig. They get space for oviposition as well as the nutrition that they derive from the fig seeds. And guys, this one is a very rare type. Okay, this is this is something very, very, very important. It is called as pseudocopulation. Orchids, not all orchids, but there is a Mediterranean orchid. To attract the insects for pollination, they have devised certain mechanism. Like, see, what is this mechanism? The Mediterranean orchid called as Ophrys has developed employs a technique called sexual decite. I'll tell you what is this sexual decite. It's a very rare type. So what they've actually done, this Ophrys जो है ना, this orchid ophrys, it is actually fooling the bumblebee. It's actually fooling the honeybee. How one petal of the flower bears an uncanny resemblance to the female bee, right? So one petal of the orchid resembles the shape and size and the color of the female bee. So what happens is that when looking from far away, when a male bee looks for from far away, he feels that he mistakes that petal to be the female. So he hurriedly goes to that petal and he kind of pollinates, he kind of copulates there. Actually copulates with the petal. Weird, right? But true. Are you getting my point? That's why it's called a sexual deceit. Yeah, it's like deception. They're deceiving. How they're deceiving the petal? The petal has an resemblance with the female. So the male feels that he's going and doing copulation. So he goes and copulates, but it is not a real copulation. It's like a pseudo copulation. So he copulates with that petal, thinking that he has copulated with the female. But actually, this results in the advantage to the orchid because when the male comes there and he carries the pollen grains away, right? So the male bee is attracted, perceives that the female pseudo copulates with that flower and is dusted with pollen grains. So he carries the pollen grains to another flower. He again goes to another orchid and pseudo copulates. So it becomes like an agent of pollination. So this is a very important co-evolution. But what will happen if in evolution, if the female bee's color pattern changes during evolution, then this won't continue. Because today the male bee is getting fooled. Why? Because the orchid flower petal is looking similar to the female from a distance. But tomorrow, if even there is a slight color change pattern in the female bee, then the orchid won't get this advantage. Then they would not get this advantage. Yes, guys, have you all understood all these points which I explained? Any question? Please ask. Please ask any question, anything you want to ask. Very interesting, right? All these examples. Yes, very good, very good, very good, all of you all. Okay, Himanshu. Yes, yes, we will solve questions. Don't worry. Still, a lot of synopsis is left to be done. We will be doing at the highest level. I told you ना. अभी हम जाते हैं. Yeah, so symbiotic, I've discussed about the commensalism. Yeah, even the jackals follow lion, jackals following the lion or the Arctic fox following a tiger. Yes, you see some examples of parasites here. Total stem parasite is Cuscuta. Cuscuta is a stem parasite because it's daughter, no? It like parasites the stem. There's another parasite like total root parasite. Just remember Rafflesia. I hope you know the Rafflesia. Beautiful, huge flowers, Rafflesia, which are generally pollinated by elephants. And partial stem parasite is Viscum album, Loranthus and Viscum. And partial root parasite, stem parasite is Viscum, partial root parasite is Centellum. So I told you, protocooperation is a type in which both are mutually benefited, but they can live without each other. Without each other also they are fine. Yeah, amensalism, guys, this is very important. All of you pay attention. What is amensalism? When one is at loss, but the other one is neutral. एक का loss हो रहा है, the other one is, neutral, neither benefit, neither at loss. It has got two types. Amensalism is of two types. First is antibiosis. What is the first one? The first one is the antibiosis, where I told you, that the antibiotics, microorganisms make antibiotics. So it is like an antibiosis. The phenomenon. Now see, guys, which is the first antibiotic? Bolo? Which is the first antibiotic to be discovered? Anyone? Yes, correct. Penicillin, right? So penicillin, this fungus, Penicillium notatum, Penicillium chrysogenum. They made the fungus, they made the penicillium, made the antibiotic called as penicillin. But was this penicillin antibiotic of any use to the, to the penicillium? No, it was useful for humans, but it was of no use to that fungus. So for fungus is unaffected. But this penicillium, this penicillin antibiotic killed the staphylococcus. Remember staphylococcus aureus bacteria. So because of this penicillin, the bacteria died, right? So the bacteria were at loss, but the fungus was neither profited nor at loss. So antibiotics are secreted as secondary metabolites. So that process, that mechanism is called as what? Antibiosis. What is it called as? It's known as the antibiosis. And what is allelopathy? So allelopathy is the same example, like, this higher plant secretes some chemicals that inhibit growth. So I told you this, like one example I give you for that juglone, no, made by the Indian walnut, the black walnut tree. Similarly, roots of carrot grass. Carrot grass is called Congress grass, Parthenium. गाजर घास बोलते हैं इसको गांव में. It's called as what? Carrot grass or gajar grass, Parthenium, Congress grass, which is most troublesome weed in India because it secretes certain acids called as tranexamic acid, which inhibits the growth of the other plants. So Parthenium, Congress grass, and the black walnut, secreting juglone. So these are examples of allelopathies. So you got to know that amensalism is of two types: antibiosis and allelopathy. Yeah, see, this is as per the age groups. So as per the age groups, there is this is the expanding population. If you see expanding population means what? The reproductive and pre-reproductive are more. You can see the pre-reproductive and reproductive are more, right? Then the population is going to expand. Stable population means equal. And diminishing means what? It is like an urn shape. Right? This is an urn shape. Yeah, the great T.R. Malthus in his essay has pointed out that the population increases, population tends to increase in the geometric ratio, but food production increases in the arithmetic ratio. So population increases very fast as compared to the food production. So food production will definitely increase, but it will increase like what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Population will increase like multiples 1, 2, 4, 8, 1 to 4, 6, 8, 16, 32, like that. So this is given by what? T.R. Malthus, the population law. Remember that T.R. Malthus is given the population law. Okay, population increases geometrically, but food production increases arithmetically. I told you about the biotic potential, maximum potential बच्चे देने का जो है वो biotic potential है. For a human female it is 12. Maximum potential to give babies during the entire lifetime is the biotic potential of a species. And carrying capacity is the feeding capacity of the earth, like how much the earth can tolerate. Or environment also tries to resist the population by, like apocalypse. You must have heard about the movie 2012. This is environmental resistance. Environment, tries to resist this rise in population by bringing about tsunamis or pandemics, or let's say whatever, like that is called as the environmental resistance. So J-shaped curve is like, this is a normal one, like, lag, log, and stationary. J-shaped is like, it is idealistic but doesn't exist in nature. Speciation, so guys, you must have heard now, allopatric and sympatric. Allopatric speciation is because what, like, allopatric means and sympatric is formation of new species. Allopatric is in the same area or different areas when they are geographically separated. Like elephants, Asian elephant, African elephant, when they are geographically separated, that is called allopatric speciation. Sympatric speciation means what? Living in the same area, they cannot breed. That is because of reproductive isolation. The camouflage is also called crypsis. It's a type of coloration in which animal helps to camouflage. It's called as cryptic camouflage. Opposite of antibiosis is probiosis. What is probiotics? Remember that? Antibiotics, help to kill the germs, right? They help to kill the microbes. What do antibiotics do? They help to kill the microbes. Probiosis helps to, like probiotics. They help to increase the microbes, the good microbes of the gut. They are called as the probiotics, right? I told you about that the India's growth rate is 2% per year. China is only 1.4%. Maximum population growth rate is Kenya. Kenya का growth rate सबसे ज़्यादा है. Austria has a negative growth rate. Most densely populated country in the world is Bangladesh. I mean density wise, huh? And most thinly populated country in the world is obviously Greenland, and then followed by Australia. Thinly populated. Mumbai is the second largest metropolis after Tokyo. But this is like, this gap is now less. Mumbai has become around 22 million now. 21, 22 million. Tokyo is at 25, 26. So I told you, thickly populated state in India is West Bengal. Thinly populated is Arunachal Pradesh. Let's go for some MCQs now. Guys, have you solved this MCQ? I guess not, right? Just try and solve MCQ number 4. Solve MCQ number 4, guys. Yeah, so yes, no answer. Which is more recent, guys? See, look here. Initially, the male and female. वो लोग ने, see on the left hand side it is males, right hand side it is females. You can see initially, yes. Whose population was more initially, male or female? And what about the current? The female population here is little more and the male population is little less. Right? Very, very less, very like minutely, if you see, you can see the difference. No answer still. A is more recent, and it shows A is the most recent one, and it shows slight reduction in the growth rate. Slightly reduction in the growth rate. A is the more recent one. Growth rate is reduced little bit as compared to B. Like here now A is ज़्यादा है. Here you can see it little reduced. See here also it is little reduced. How you can see, you have to see very carefully. This is less. This is little more. Can you see? Here it is more. Here it is less. So answer is what? Answer is A. A is the most recent one, and there is slight reduction in the growth rate. Chalo guys, MCQ number 11. I want everyone to participate, please. MCQ number 11, send the answer in the chat. Question number 11. Yes, guys, no answer for this. बहुत easy है. Why I'm not answering today? देखो, A is what? Yes, Himanshu, Komal. What is the logical one? A plus minus B. Natality plus mortality. What will be the answer for 11th one? Yeah, Shravani, very good. D is the right answer. Perfect. A is natality plus immigration. B is mortality plus immigration. Very good. Shravani is right. Let's go to other MCQs. So let's solve the NCRT related. Yeah, MCQ number 10 here. MCQ number 10. Question number 10. No one? Guys, it's very easy. If the population of 50 paramecium present in a pool increases to 150 after an hour, what would be the growth rate of population? 50, they were earlier, they were 50, right? Now they are 150. So how many are added? 100 are added, right? So it would be 100 per hour. Yes, did you understand? Initially there are 50, now they are 150. So how many are added? 100 have increased, so 100 per hour. Yeah, this MCQ had come once. What parameters are used for tiger census in a country's national parks and sanctuaries? To find out the number of tigers, what parameters do we refer to? Do we refer to the pug marks only? Do we refer to pug marks and fecal pellets of tiger? Only the fecal pellets or the actual head counts, like the totaling? Yeah, very good. Shravani has answered B. That is, Shravani, you're correct. It is pug marks as well as the fecal pellets. Pug marks and fecal pellets both. Good. Yeah, what would be the amenzalism? It is an association between two species where so amenzalism is what very good be. One species is harmed, but the other one is unaffected, right, Shravani? Then the next one. Yeah, question number 3. AIPMT 2015, SUNY 2015. These are two graphs of two populations, like, B is increasing, A is decreasing. So what does this graph depict? How to solve which one? 16th one. No, like that won't count. No, they won't ask like that. Births minus deaths, basically. Solve the third one. You want for the third one, guys? See, the population B is increasing, right? More successful for food than population A or population. We are talking about what two populations of herbivores in a grassy field. So population A produced more offsprings? No. Population A consumed the members of population B? No. Both? No. The answer is A, right? B competed more successfully for food than A. Yeah, what would be the answer for MCQ number 21? The physiological capacity of a population to produce offsprings is known as? Very good, Shravani is right. B is biotic potential. Let's need 2016 MCQ. See, 26th MCQ is quite easy, right? The cuckoo laying eggs in the nest of other, but that is a brood parasitism. That would be MCQ number B. Chalo, solve 25th one. Gauss principle of competitive exclusion states that Very good. C is the right answer. Correct. No two species can occupy the same niche indefinitely for the same limiting resources. Yeah, MCQ number 30. Monarch butterfly is not eaten by predators because of its. Very good. Bad, bitter taste. 29th one. At a given time in a forest, there are like 900 deers are there. 100 deers more can be accommodated. 100 more deer could be accommodated. So then 1000 is what? Is it the what out of these four options? Very good, perfect, Shravani. So Shravani has solved the MCQs well today. You can practice more, like you have got a lot of material available. So please practice more and more MCQs. And
Yeah, guys. So anyone wants to ask any question, anything you want to ask me? We have completed the chapter today. We completed the chapter today for the organisms and the population. Please do MCQ practice at home. Please practice maximum MCQs. Now, I guess only one chapter is left. Yeah. So we will continue with that in the next lecture. Okay. Anything else? Any other question? Any query? Okay. Hope all are understanding. Please practice. Keep up the good work. Be sincere. Be in the hunt. Right. Okay, guys. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon. For the next chapter. Take care. Bye bye. See you. Good night. Good night. Bye. Bye, all of you.